Okay, we'll go ahead and start our road and bridge meeting. The first thing is the resolution numbers. What is it? 2408. 2408. David, you want to explain to us?
Yeah, this is resolution 2408. It's two parcels of ground on the north side of 105th North, west of 25th East. In our previous meetings, you guys decided to declare portions of that deeded property as odd lots so that we could sell it to the adjoining landowner. It was Errol Smith. The map shows the two parcels. On the west side of that, it would be 13 feet wide, and on the east side, it's 15 feet wide. It's not a very big strip there, but that should take care of that barn or the building that was approaching into the right of way there.
Okay. Any questions?
I think that motion. Second motion to adopt the resolution.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
I do have a question for you. He contacted me this morning, Errol did, and was wondering about reducing this further by the taxes that he paid in over the last, I think he said he had that property since 77. And he'd been paying taxes on it from 77 to 91. I didn't think we were gonna reduce the value on any of the taxes on this one, but
Well, if it's an error on our part, the policy has been that we'll go back 3 years,
3 years, okay.
you know, so maybe, just find out the valuation. From Dustin, then consider it.
Okay,
We can do that.
I think that's similar to what we did.
Yeah, I think the other one we did 15-year.
Did we?
Yeah.
On theirs?
Yeah. Well, I can double check that. You wanna do the same thing?
Yeah, because we should be consistent, I think.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's a mistake by the county, though. Well, I guess it is if we're
Yeah.
billing him for
Property and
property,
we're-
it's, yeah, I guess that's true.
And the older technology where you couldn't spot this thing,
Yeah, that's true.
you're basically, he's paying taxes on Bonneville County property.
Find out how much it is. It won't be.
Yeah, it won't be much at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So I'll follow what we did with the previous one out on Highway 26.
just, yeah, follow to get the number and then we'll consider it.
Right. Okay.
So,
All
okay. Thank you, Lance. You wanna take these others? It looks like we've got several items, take them in the order you want.
Yeah, so the first one is change order number 3 on 45th East Widening project. And it's a big packet because it covers from back into even October of last year. It covers work change directives number 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 14, 15, and 16. And they're all outlined there. Work change directive number 9 increased at $745. Increased our work change directive number 10 was actually a deduct of $3,214. Work change 11 was an increase of $5,001. Work change directive 12 increased at $9,150. Number 13 increased at $9,701. Number 14 increased at $13,028. Work change directive number 15 was a decrease of $6,101. And then number 16 raised at $19,135 for a total change order of $47,445. On the contract itself, we are still less than 0.3 or 0.4% of the total contract with change orders.
So that's good.
It is very good. I mean, most of the time, if you can keep it under 10% of the contract change, this is good, and we're 0.4%.
What's their schedule on that?
Schedule is they're still trying to get most of it wrapped up and paved and everything before school starts in the fall. That's their,
How far are they?
they have excavated the west side north of, north of Iona, going towards 29th North. They've got past about the half mile to about 41st North. And they're gonna start next week and probably start excavating on the east side of the road and go down and bring that back up into with proper base.
Is it completely closed or are they open one side?
They're opening the one side. They have traffic out there for the residents that live on the road. But
Yeah, they have
it's
signs
a
up
full
26.
closure, but if you live on the road, they're still allowing
Open
you
to
to
the
have
residents, yeah.
so.
Are you guys okay with this change?
Yes.
Yeah, we were out there. Because the kids couldn't get back on there, we had to follow,
Yeah,
because they had a big pile of gravel.
yeah, they do have a big pile of gravel there.
They're telling the residents, at least on the west portion, that they're gonna have it open again by the first part of June. HK is,
Well,
but
The whole road or?
no, just the western portion. We'll see
okay,
if it happens or not. But that's what they've been telling the residents. I've had a few people call that live across the street and
yeah.
that's what they've told them, but we'll see.
The next item is a memo from our right-of-way agent on the First Street project. This is in conjunction with the city of Ammon. I'll have you take a look at it, so. The piece of property is zoned commercial on part of parcel 21. And so commercial property is valued quite a bit higher than others' land. We started out with, kind of trying to follow the city of Ammon, what they were offering is $1.14 square foot. We didn't have any takers on it. We went up from there. We went up to $3.50, but based on a broker's price opinion of this commercial ground, it's coming back at $16 a square foot.
Which piece is this?
This is on the corner of Clary and First Street. It is on it'd be the west side of Clary, or east side of Clary, sorry, east side of Clary.
West of the car wash.
Yeah, it's just west of the car lot area.
Who's
Piece
opinion?
right
A
here.
broker?
It was, yeah, it was a broker for the Mike sale.
I was gonna say it must be by the landowner.
Yeah.
What is the appraiser?
The appraiser, our right-of-way adjuster and appraiser looked at the broker's price opinion and he is agreeing with that based on their information that they received back. That's what this memo is. This memo is from Michael Scott, the right-of-way agent, and he is agreeing with the $16 a square foot. And the revised adjusted value would then, the total compensation would be 35,000 versus the original offer we put to them was 7,668.
I mean, if you ever had to condemn, that's what they'd use.
Is the
So it's,
appraised value?
well, it'd be the total of 35,000 that we would offer him then for the right of way and the easement.
Which part is it?
It's the parcel just east of Clary, the vacant ground.
This one right here.
So we're taking a half an acre.
Not even half an acre. The requirement for land is 839 square feet. And for the permanent easement, it's 2,704 square feet.
Well, when I did the math on $16 square foot, it came up to 70,000 an acre, right? 16 times 43,560.
Yeah, this isn't that much ground.
Yeah, but you said it's 35,000.
The total adjusted compensation is 35,000.
That's a half an acre.
Well, so, okay,
I understand what you're saying.
it's 2,704 square feet for the easement and 839 square feet. And I didn't double check the math
I'm just
there.
surprised it's that much acreage, you know?
$2,704 or 4 square feet plus 839 square feet is 3,543 square feet times $16 a square foot.
Comes out to be 56,000.
56,688. So I'll have to get back
Something's
with him
going
on
wrong
that. I didn't double
Yeah.
check his numbers on there.
Something's not right. with
Yeah,
that.
something's not right.
I'll double check with him and have him reevaluate this. I did not run the math on it, so.
Okay, so we'll wait to sign until.
Yeah, wait
we
to
get
sign the
right
memos.
numbers.
Yeah, cause you're 43,560 and mean, so for a full acre, their value in that ground is $700,000. It's not 70,000,
It
it's
was
700,000.
Oh, maybe I did my math wrong.
Yeah, 43,560 times 16 is like 690,000.
It's $696,960.
Price of dirt.
So that's probably pretty close.
It's probably right then.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no,
This
you're
computer,
fine.
the keys- the
I was thinking you were
keys
right
don't
for a
work
minute
on it.
too.
Okay, yeah, I missed a number. So
I'll
maybe we
double
can
check.
sign that unless you.
Well,
wanna verify
let me
something.
double check with him on these numbers and make sure they're adding up.
Okay,
And then we can say give a conditional approval based on him verifying that
Property is.
the math was right.
Is that what you
wanna do that?
Yeah, that's probably.
So he doesn't have that listed in here though, and he probably ought to have it listed as a different price for the easement.
so Commissioner Christensen would like us to agree to
But if he's.
approval on the math.
Yeah, cause I wondered about that, the easement shouldn't be.
So the easement is not, it's
$8
$8 a square foot.
Yeah.
So it's half of what buying the land is,
So that's probably what.
but
makes
that's
it the
not,
30.
that's not described very well in here, so I'll get back and have him redo this.
With that,
We'll just wait.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
cause that, I mean, just going to a fire lane out there, which is
Yeah.
a lot wider.
the other two items are draft.
What's, where's the Hammond on that? Cause they're putting it off till the following year too.
We think they're putting it off just because of some other environmental stuff that they've had to supposedly do. I don't know much of where it is. City of Hammond and Horrocks were gonna try to get an irrigation project out in advance of the construction of the road project, but with water in now, that's not gonna happen. So at earliest, we're gonna see maybe some irrigation stuff in the fall. Part of that irrigation is along the property that we control.
Yeah, so there's not urgency to move this ahead.
There's not a tremendous urgency on that and buying that. However, we have other parcels along here that are not communicating well with Michael Scott, the right of way agent. And he has drafted a couple different letters. One of them basically says, here's what we've offered you. We haven't heard back from you and we need to hear back from you. And if we don't hear back with you by such and such a time, we may be forced to go into eminent domain or condemnation.
What time?
So he's saying in here, the letter, let's see. I think he's saying by May 16th, please respond by May 16th, after which time Bonneville County Road and Bridge may have no choice but to forward this matter to Bonner County Legal Counsel to commence condemnation proceedings. And it does include a agreement for possession. And that would allow the person to respond, do something back to us and not necessarily agree to a price, but allow us to actually get into the property and stake it or do what we need to do in order to finish the rest of the design and the rest of the construction. So
Yeah, don't get ahead of that. Until you do get that. That was part of the problem that was made on the North Loop, is they got ahead of themselves.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
By a country mile.
yeah.
So I'll bring this memo back to you. I'll tell him to go ahead and do these letters up and get them sent out to the residents, and hopefully we'll have some correspondence back. It's been crickets for months.
Seems like I remember on that one also, they kind of had a short memory that that wasn't in their jurisdiction to condemn.
Mhm. Yep.
One of the other projects that we have going on is the design of the traffic signal at Holmes and 49th South. One of the things that's kind of come up in the middle of it is that canal crossing. I don't know if you can go to Holmes and 49th South. There's a canal crossing there in order.
Big.
Well, it's a pretty big structure. But in order to change it to the 5-lane road section, we're gonna have to extend that. Right now, we're looking at cost of the whole project exceeding what was budgeted, what was put into the program for this, and so with that and some difficulties with the environmental consultant, there, on these projects with LTAC, there has to be some disadvantaged business entities, DVE requirements in the design contracts. They were using a firm called Bionomics to do the environmental portion of those. That company got bought out and are basically unable to perform the responsibilities associated with environmental. And because of that, and because of the right-of-way costs and the extra costs associated with this structure, we're looking at maybe having to do something outside of the contractor that would put in the signal and do this on Bonneville County dollars.
Shared by,
The city of Idaho Falls, yes. And that's part of the MOU that we have.
yeah, but they'll have to sign off on that too, which.
And they've been in these meetings talking about this, but they would have to sign off on it, and they're okay with doing that, at least conceptually now. So we're looking at a few different options as far as how do we get that structure redone prior to putting the signal in, and we don't wanna postpone the project, and so I might be having to go out for procurement of a structure, stiff leg structure, before the project is actually due to construct.
But we need to reconfirm. Sometimes the memories fade on those.
Yeah. So what's gonna happen, and they have a preliminary, they're gonna probably have a preliminary design set of layout plans for us by the end of the month. And we'll sit down after we get that and go through all of the costs that we've had up to now, plus these concepts with the city of Idaho Falls, and start doing some transfer of funds.
Is it the one on the top?
It goes kitty corner across, yeah. So we have to extend it on the northwest side, on the south, or the northeast northeast side to southwest side. Southwest side is a little bit less that we have to get as far as, but that northeast corner is the most difficult corner. That's happening and so we're going through different things to try to figure out how to get it there and how to line it up and share the cost with the city of Idaho Falls and also be in a situation where we can do right of way procurement on this by hopefully the end of 2024.
Yeah.
Well, that's the right of way procurement, not construction.
I know.
We won't have construction until into the summer of 2025, probably.
I do have a extension request for Comore Loma Division number 33 final plat. They've submitted their final plat and their improvement drawings, but they're waiting on a will serve from DEQ to be able to finish up the water drawings and DEQ to give them a will serve letter. They're transferring some water rights. So they've requested a 6-month extension on that.
Okay. You guys okay with that?
You heard anything more on Sunset Ridge or any of that? That's kind of just dead in the water.
They're still working on that Sunset Heights, aren't they?
Not sure status on Sunset.
Okay.
I know the Comore Water Corporation is kind of holding Randy at May. They're refusing to issue the will serve, at least for the water situation, until they have some other stuff, water rights kind of figured out. So that's the only power they have. And so they're kind of holding up this.
Scott
They're trying to
Jackson.
figure out some other stuff, but I don't know about Sunset.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Is there anything else you had while you're here?
I was just gonna see if you guys had any questions at all about this is our second extension and we don't like to do that. And so we appreciate your understanding of that.
Okay,
Thank you much.
thank you.
Just.
What else do we have?
Anything else as a item that we need to talk about? So if you have questions.
The only other thing, so we're still waiting on the fire district. They're supposed to be sending us a letter to take over all the fire inspections within Fire District 1. The letter hasn't been clarified. I met with them yesterday and then they just brought up to me, essentially, I'm like, well, how do you plan to do these reviews? Because they essentially want access into our city works system to be able to just look at the reviews in there and then mark their inspections off. And I said, well, I'm probably okay with that, but understanding that I'm probably gonna put a contract together with you that you have to pay for a license in that software because we have to pay for that software out of our department. So I haven't got in there yet to see what the per license cost is, but my plan was just ask them how many license they need, and then I'll just basically put together an MOU or some kind of contract with them saying, we'll give you access into our system, but this is your yearly subscription cost to be able to have a license into the system and be reimbursed for that. So as long as you guys are okay with that, I just want to check and make sure.
Okay.
Does next Monday ever come on the area of impact meetings that you're having?
No.
Wait. Still waiting, huh?
Yeah, I know Wade's out of town and there's, I can't remember where they are. There's some APA meeting or something that him and Carrie are at all week, and they had reached out to Weston again to schedule another meeting, and I think that's supposed to be this Friday, but I've never actually seen the invite come through. So
Eventually, we'll just have to start moving forward so that we can stay to.
I'm gonna put it on the May agenda for our planning and zoning commission. I already told Wade that, so if I don't have anything from them, I'll basically just pull a draft from what we've done with Ammon and make a few modifications and send it over and say, this is what we're
One of the
taking.
big keys in the change supports it in the law is not including areas that they can't realistically annex.
Yeah, they can.
Are you gonna come up with that?
I talked to him about that yesterday, so we had a planners lunch yesterday, Wade wasn't there, but all the other City of Idaho Falls planners were, and I talked to him about that a little bit, and Ammon was there too, and I said, we're gonna have to look at the areas we agreed upon with you, cause we have to reaffirm that agreement, and if there's areas that aren't reasonably annexable within 5 years, we'll have to take them out. Cause you can't service them, and they're like, yeah, that's great, so they were all on board with that. Idaho Falls, interestingly enough, hadn't even read the legislation or read the
Like
new annexation legislation.
meeting that we were at.
Cause I asked him, I said, well, what's your pulse on the new annexation legislation they passed? How does that affect the city? "Well, we haven't even read it."
They need to
So-
they need to understand that we're gonna.
And I told him, I said, you know, the city's expressed a lot of concern about people giving written consent for annexation. I said, well, the new annexation legislation is clear. That if that's given from one property owner, it goes with the property until it's annexed into the city, and that's the consent. Oh, does it say that? So,
Well, that's, by practice and case law, we could never get them to acknowledge that that was valid. That was one of the things that kept blocking us, but the other was these boundaries, because they would, there's certain areas that were never gonna be annexed, that they wouldn't come to an agreement to pull out. You know, some of those are like Sunnyside South, of Sunnyside, you know, there by Smith Chevrolet. Are there others that are, can you pull up a map of our area?
I'll pull up a map of the area of impact in just a minute. I just remembered I wanted to ask something else. So this gravel pit here. So this is Doyle's Gem Lake Harbor is just north
Right.
here. Do you guys know any history on that pit? Anybody? As far as I can tell, I could get back in the imagery till 78, it's been there. But now, Knife River's coming in and asking me, or not Knife River, HK is coming in and asking me about buying that pit and mining it. But I don't know that we ever had a hearing or if it was an old state pit.
Who owns it right now?
It's owned by Old Castle now, and City of Idaho Falls owns part of it. But I just didn't know if you guys knew any
The
history on
bicycle
that pit.
pedestrian committee had talked about this a bunch, and I thought they were trying to get a BMX park and do a bunch of trails and stuff out there too.
Which they ended up doing where off of Sunnyside where
Further south.
yeah. There's a guy in my ward who's over all that. And he does a good job with it, but yeah, that's where they ended up at on that. So I just didn't know if this was an old state pit. Their question was basically, do we need to go through a hearing? And I said, well, I don't really know any history. I've looked through all our files and I can't find anything, so.
I have no idea. I don't either.
The state owned a portion of it at one time, so my thought was that it probably was used in the construction of the highway as an old state pit, but
Access is terrible.
Yeah.
Into there.
well. And there's some other problems they gotta resolve, but I just thought I'd ask that. Let me pull up the other map so I can show the current area of impact.
Is that, those maps of area of impact for all of the cities, are they on a GIS layer anywhere?
Yeah, so they're on, if you go to the, I'll show you how to get to them here, I'll pull it up, so you can see where to get to them. And Ammons and Iona have been updated to the new ones on here. But if you go to the zoning map. And then over on the side, there's this layers, the 3 squares.
Okay.
And then if you drop down under public zoning, just turn off the zoning and then turn on the impact areas. And then when I zoom in here. What's the size alone?
Yeah, I know there's another one in the city of Yukon area of impact.
And those are on here too, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, well, I don't know if the city of Yukon has any standards to follow that are different than ours.
It's kind of hard to see, but you can see where the. Oops, well, zoom out. Zoomed in a little more because the orange lines cover it up when you're too far out. Jeez. It's not being friendly today. You can see where the black line is vaguely. So this is 65th South. This is 25th. Oh, it's not. Guess I'll draw. If I can find my pen. Either. So this is 65th. 25th right here, so that's where Hammond starts, so Idaho Falls is 65th. Then it drops down here to about a half mile between 65th and 81st out to the highway. To the old highway. And then once we get up to here. So this is all the Smith Chevrolet area that you were asking about. So it goes to 49th South there. And then ends about a half mile to the west of the highway interchange there and runs straight north
For a long way.
for a long ways.
Let's see where it goes up north.
So it goes to 17th North, which is where that piece is to the
Yeah.
south of Brian's farm that they tried to develop at one point.
Yeah, okay.
Follows the boundary of the airport, then follows the river all the way up to 65th North.
There's a lot of undeveloped ground in all that area. A lot.
Well, that's, most of that's served. I mean, they've already got the lines in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like here at Sage Lakes, I mean, this piece right here. I don't know why that won't let me click on it, but you can see where the box comes up at. That's already been annexed. That's the Rockwell piece. So there's some stuff up here where their utilities actually go north of where the existing area of impact is, and we've addressed that some. It's mostly the southwest corner of the area of impact that
Mostly, but, there's,
that we've talked to him about, and then there's some in the northeast corner too,
Around Anderson.
around Anderson and going that way.
is that the wrecking yards that they said
Yeah.
they had no interest? See, cause that stuff, if they have no interest, shouldn't be in there. Where are we on the north side? North of, I mean, the east of that area.
So right now it comes down 65th and then comes to 15th and goes south until you hit Iona Road. And ends right before Anderson, but the wrecking yards are just on the west side of that black line on the other side of Anderson.
Yeah, cause that, you know. The
Which-
issue in that area is, that's false water.
Which there's 2 lines in that road. Cause you have you have Idaho Falls to go to the packing plant, and then you've got Falls Water at the other end.
Okay, where does Idaho Falls come down the road?
Comes to about right there,
Okay,
just to the east of the packing plant.
So.
Packing plant's here, the line comes to about right here,
Their city limits do,
yeah.
but their area of impact goes over the.
And interestingly enough, the plans I have for that, which is the peaking plant, say that it's gonna be serviced by Falls Water.
Well, that's part of the what plant?
The Idaho Falls natural gas peaking plant that they're putting in for power, they're servicing with Falls Water.
Well, that's why I question leaving.
And it's outside the city limits?
The junkyards in there, wrecking yards.
And so,
Because they're not gonna annex them. And if Falls Water needs to come down there, that's the purpose we put that, road right of way service agreement. Otherwise, you've got an area that's basically dead to everybody.
so that's come up in the discussion, and that's where I've told Wade and Chris, either you have to have proof to me of an agreement with the city of Idaho Falls that you're gonna allow properties within the city limits to be served by Falls Water. And I own a Bonneville sewer district out in this area, and that's how they're reasonably serviceable. Or we need to update the boundary so that it's not in there.
Well, or in this particular case with the wrecking yards, they say they don't have a zone for them, so why should that be in the area? Yeah. See,
Or they've gotta come up with a solution for how they're gonna annex those and let them continue to operate, and that's what I told Wade on that.
yeah, but, that's the beauty of the new laws, you can review that every 5 years, because if it takes, I don't wanna get an agreement where they say, well, next Monday, we're gonna change that ordinance, because we've heard that.
Well, and the city's argument yesterday, when I was talking to them about the 5 years, is they're like, well, that's not long-term planning. And I said, well, yeah, it is, because the beauty of that is we can look at it to begin with and say, this is where we think the growth is gonna go, and this is what we think is reasonably annexable. But if that changes, then we have an opportunity to change that plan in 5 years. That's the smart way to do it, because otherwise you end up with these huge areas that really aren't reasonably serviceable within 20 years.
Or with the new annexation law also, areas like Rockwell that are outside, and I know that's voluntary. But it kind of changes some of the conditions where they can't commit force annex, but that's not long-term planning
Yeah.
either. You grow by the path of least resistance where the developers want it, and then you end up with these long strings.
But the beauty is, you do a new subdivision and the city says, okay, we'll service it because it's not annexable yet. Well, all Rockwell has to do is execute on their plat and original deed. We give consent to annex, and then all those homes that they sell, when the city gets there, they've already given consent. That's how the annexation bill addresses it.
Mhm.
So that argument that they've always given us of, well, it's just too hard to annex these properties in the future is now gone because of that new legislation.
Well, that's just an area to get on your radar for when you work with P and Z to kind of figure out, should that be in this area of impact boundary? Keep going around that. 'Cause I
There's a
know
number of different areas that we.
It comes down to Lincoln and heads east to 25th and then runs south. And then it's got this nice little jut out where they did
Well, that would.
Ivan's Acres and Arctic Circle
Yeah,
the
long time ago.
but north of there, Costco's outside of the area of impact.
Yeah, so the new area they presented does go further north here because you've got Costco and
Okay, but you
but
don't
there
have city
again,
services up there because it's right in the middle of Falls.
Yeah. that'll be another area that we'll have to look at for
Look at that.
the serviceability.
Well, Falls Water and the city of Ammon on the other side too. I mean, that's where they kind of jut up against each other and
They need to review a lot of those MOUs, just like with the wrecking yard. If they've got an MOU with Falls
But
Water.
not service.
That they won't serve there, well, that doesn't service our needs. Yeah, the Costco area would be another one to kind of put a pin in and take a look at it. Another area is as we go down farther south.
so from Ivan's Acres down, it basically follows 25th East quite a way. I mean, it follows it
Okay,
all the way down to 65th South.
Yeah. South side of Sand Creek Golf Course.
and they come, the area of impact comes down to the corner, but that crosses the Ursa,
There's a line, right at that little corner there, yeah.
right?
Which a lot of that area they've already annexed, but they are gonna run into some problems south, not only with utilities, but also floodplain stuff, and
Yeah, well.
I was talking to
City
that
of
about them yesterday, or that with them yesterday.
See, cause, okay, where are we out a little further west with like when it gets out, by Sandy Downs and Lazy Aid and some of those, you know, that have developed in the county that are.
So it doesn't go that far south.
No, it stops at 65th. Here's Lazy Aid. We're clear down here.
Oh, okay, so, okay, that's another area.
And
One of the residents said, would you look at that?
the new annexation bill protects the fairgrounds. Did you ever look at that?
Yeah, I did.
Says that they can't be annexed unless the Board of County Commissioners agrees to the annexation.
By
Yeah.
majority,
Yeah,
2/3. Okay, so those are kind of the key areas that we have disagreed with the city because they're not annexable. In the future, if they come up and they change their policies and can work something out, great. 5
then we
years,
can meet again and change it.
but I'm not convinced that, the long-term planning issue is a little like they wanted in there to take care of the green belt. Which the area of impact agreement doesn't have anything to do with, to do that, needs to be an MOU with the county.
Well, and I even told the city of Ammon yesterday, cause even the ones that we've just done, like Iona and Ammon, we have to recertify them. And so I said, we're gonna look at them again, and then I said, the other thing that we need to do, especially with city of Ammon, is we need to look at floodplain stuff, because I don't always agree with a lot of stuff they do in the floodplain, so I told them I wanted to make sure our standards are the same in the area of impact on the floodplain. I said, if that means that the county is more stringent, then that's what we need to follow, is the county floodplain ordinance. So
Well, same with Iona, you know, they've got a pretty large area.
we're gonna have to pull a lot of that back.
Which. You know, then you have to kind of find that balance outside of that. To not let it eat up the farm ground. Until it's worked out there.
Well, and the thing is with Iona, let me see, I think the new one's, no, this isn't the new one. I gotta have Trish upload the new one. So they go to the highway here,
They have that strip along the highway.
but let's see here. So this piece right here, that's a new Rockwell development that they just annexed. This piece, these pieces right here, Johnny Seedall's, he just sold all those to Rockwell, and they've submitted an annexation and rezone into the city of Iona. And then Arthur Clark owns all these 4 pieces up here, and he's already got a plat done. He's just been waiting to be able to be annexed into the city of Iona. So it'll go, I would think within the next 2 years, you'll pretty much be all the way to the highway in Iona there.
Okay, and that fits within.
So that'll fit within the 5 years, so that protects a lot of our north area, because then they could reasonably branch out either way and service, but
Is that in Iona Bonneville's current service area?
yeah,
So they don't have to go through the
no,
city of Idaho Falls,
yeah,
which may not be an issue. I think I've told you, Iona Bonneville now has the site and the property to start there, and they've gone through judicial confirmation,
Oh, for that lift station.
well, for the lift station and the plant,
Oh, okay.
so they've got it approved. Start building, I don't know what their schedule is for that, but that'll
Where are they
change.
gonna build that plant at?
Uh,
Do you know?
yeah, I think it's finalized. I better make sure before we can talk. But, you know, see, cause that's going to affect a lot of that area. That they you know, those dry lines that I on Bonneville had going up to Beach's Corner and you know, that they can't get the flows in and things like that.
Well, and that's part of the problem, even with Yukon, is they have their area of impact, but they have no more
Yes.
sewer capacity, so they can't go anywhere. Unless they come up with some new plan to work with IBSD
Yeah.
and tie that all together once that comes together, and I don't know, maybe they'll do that,
That's a
but
long way away.
yeah.
But that was in the original plan when Yukon put that pressure line down there.
Yeah.
But the other plan was to come down and go into the Iowa Bonneville trunk line. That's why they don't have the capacity.
It would be nice if they can get that figured out, cause the problem we're gonna run into in the county is IBSD is gonna get that additional capacity, and then you have false water, and then you get a lot harder to deny things.
It depends on what the new comprehensive, you know, what the zoning is. I mean, if they've a still ag,
Yeah,
you know, then you've got the
The other
ability to go through
services.
and, you know, kind of take the preservation of ag ground versus, is it premature for the other services?
Well, then there's still so much filling that can be done.
You know,
I wish the Ammon, is there ever a chance that Ammon will be able to go north and annex all those subdivisions, those county subdivisions on the north end there?
they could, they don't want
They
to.
don't want to, cause they
Gonna
don't have
take-
to Hammond.
It's gonna take somebody that gets in there that realizes the tax base that could be available to them from that and is willing to put up the fight.
They're gonna have to eventually.
Yeah,
well, you've got a lame duck mayor, maybe, but they've got a different dynamic in their city council. It's gonna be interesting to watch develop.
I think it's starting to push, they're starting to push a lot harder for,
There's a lot of tax base there
Yeah,
and they really do affect Ammon. I mean, they should be collecting some taxes on those.
it's the same thing with the Iona, right? All those subdivisions out there. Getting the residents to be on board and
well, you can take your shot at it, can't you?
there's only one voice that can go so far out there. But anyways,
Okay.
we'll keep working on that. Even if I don't hear from Wade when he's back next week, I'm gonna just sit down with him and just say, we're starting. If you wanna come over,
So we got.
I'm gonna be working on it. Come work with me and we can see where we can get. So,
And the plan will be to kind of show them what you're working with the county and then have them submit any written comments.
yeah,
Or are you gonna have them show up at your P and Z?
I would have him give written comments. And I've told him, I said, hey, if you're willing to make time to come over, I'm happy to sit with you while I work on it and receive input from you too, and we can work on it together. It's just,
But if they
you know,
don't get around-
that's gonna try to drag it out forever. I'm not willing to keep pushing it out and out and out.
Cause that's how we've been drug out for 4 years.
So, yeah,
Unless you
tried.
This next year.
No, he signed it yesterday.
Well, it would be unfair for new commissioners coming
Yeah.
in to have to learn this whole process. Because it can be adjusted afterwards as they find out what works and what doesn't.
so, well, this doesn't pertain to road and bridge. We can be done. I'll ask John about it after.
Okay, let's go ahead and close the meeting. We've got the sheriff's office coming in.